Corbolic V2. This is a super safe and effective natural anabolic. Not only is this product going to help you increase protein synthesis, which basically means muscle recovery and growth, it also may inhibit myostatin, which is a protein in your body that is known to inhibit muscle growth. This is a complete natural anabolic that works through multiple different pathways, has multiple trademarked ingredients. If you are a natural athlete looking for that edge, Corbolic V2 is what you need. Get yourself some.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Pro Physique Code, and look who's back. Lexi, she's back.
I'm back from my cruise. Yes, sadly. No, I'm just joking. It was fun, but I miss it. So,
well, we're going to have to do a cruise. What if we all go on a cruise together and we podcast from the cruise?
I'm down for that. When are we going?
It's a write-off. We can just write it off.
Yes, it is. It's a company expense. Let's do it.
That would be so fun, you guys. So every time I go on a cruise, like I'll willingly admit this. Every time I go on a cruise, I get really obsessed with them afterwards. So I'll like do all this research and I don't know. And I'm convinced that when I retire, I want to live on a cruise ship, because if you think about it, it can honestly be cheaper than living in a retirement home. Like
I saw a story online that said a retired couple sold their home, and instead of, they just lived on cruise ships. They were getting they were just constantly around the world.
I'm gonna do that. As of right now, that's my plan. But they're so fun. So yeah, we should do like a team cruise. That would be so fun.
Let's do it. Take it out, Lexi. Let's schedule it, Paul. I'm down.
Actually, yeah, we got a cruising expert. We could probably know the best time to go. Let's go right in the middle of hurricane season. We'll get a good discount.
Yes.
Well, you do. The only perk of it, if you look at it as a perk with hurricane season, is sometimes you get stuck out at sea for an extra day or two. So like you essentially get an extra day or two for free. But yeah, I would not want to have to deal with that. But
well, they can drive the boat too. The boat moves, not stuck. So like if the hurricane's coming,
yeah.
I saw a cruise. I don't know if it was last year, but it was like leaving out of like New York and it was coming down to Florida, and because of the hurricane, it went north. And so all these people on the cruise were in like 20-degree weather.
Oh, wow.
They couldn't go on the decks because it was so cold.
I've been on 3 different size cruise ships now, and I know some people like small ships, some people like big ships. I absolutely, after going on the ship I just went on, I am a big ship girl. Like I went on the Utopia of the Seas, and I like the bigger ships. Like there's just more to do. And
I think that's the one I went on 2 years ago.
It didn't exist then.
It's something of the seas, or are they all called that?
They're all of the sea.
Oh.
Well, here's the deal. Anyone in the comments every week moving forward, say, when is the cruise podcast? Every week moving forward till it happens.
Yeah, actually, if you guys are listening and if we just announced like, hey, a bunch of us from Pro Physique, us included, are gonna go on a cruise. We'll pick like a 3 or 4 day cruise out of like, say, Fort Lauderdale or Cape Canaveral, or maybe we'll do it out of Tampa and we can all stay at Lexi's. But we'll pick something. We'll let Lexi decide, and we just say, hey, you guys are coming. We'll all go eat together, train together.
Yeah,
I would be down for that.
It would be a blast. I would say the only downside, like as much as I love the idea of going out of Tampa because it's literally in my backyard, the Tampa ships are pretty small because they have to go under the Skyway Bridge. So like Port Canaveral, though, I mean, pretty easy to get to. The port is so easy to navigate to. So that would be a good one to cruise out of. And Utopia of the Seas, one of the biggest ships goes out of there. So that would be fun.
Well, and if it's new, are they doing a lot of deals? Maybe we can get a good deal. I don't know.
They do. I do know from past experiences that I have, if you do like a group, usually there's a group rate depending on how many people book under like a certain name. So.
And if you're flying from out of town, you would just fly to Orlando, and it's like what, maybe a 45-minute drive.
I just checked it. Yeah, it's 50 minutes.
There's probably
from my front door.
There's probably shuttles, if I had to guess.
There are, because my dad and stepmom did that. It's about 40 minutes from the Orlando airport to the actual port.
It's a lot less hectic than Miami. The one thing about Miami is, you got to go through downtown Miami to get to the port.
Yeah, a couple years ago I did that with Brooke Caperton, Paul, and we had the worst experience at the Miami port. It was so confusing. Everybody was telling us the wrong thing. So let's avoid that one.
Yep. So okay. All right. Listen, I'm in. You.
Yeah, I'm gonna put a poll on
I love
Instagram
cruises as well.
Let's do it.
I don't get motion sickness on those things. I don't get motion sickness at all. But
Pro Physique cruise.
Yeah, let's do it.
A good
I'll,
idea.
yeah, I'll get with Jamaica for this and maybe start to like talk about
Yeah.
ideas.
Yeah. It's just a write-off. We just have to talk business one time. We'll lead a group workout. Well, let's talk about pretty big weekend this weekend for competitions. Some prize competitors popping in, putting their name on the list to see if they can get Olympia qualified early in the year. And I just think it's going to be a very interesting year because of the shortening of the season. So we're having kind of our first Florida Pro Show. I think it is our first Florida
Yeah.
Pro Show, which is a
Yep.
month later than usual. So you've backed it up, but I'm gonna go out this weekend to Wasatch. So by the time this comes out, I'll already be back. But the Wasatch lineup is pretty big. It doesn't have Amy, who's won it the last 2 years. I think she's won it.
Yeah, 2 years
So
ago. Yeah.
so they'll have a new champion this year. But it does have quite a few Olympians, and some girls that have recently won. So I think the two standouts when I saw the list were Emmy Person and Jordan Brandon. Right
Yeah.
away, I was like, okay, those are, there's a lot of girls on here that if they show up on can get in that mix as well. Um, the one that stood out to me is Peyton Hunton. So a couple of years ago, Lana did this show, and I think we got third. We got third behind Ashley Kaltwasser, and it was the return of what's her name? What am I thinking of? The second winningest bikini pro of all time. Why am I blanking on her name? Anyway, so it'll come to me in a second. So Lana got third, and Peyton Hunton, I wasn't familiar with her. She got fourth. So they did a final four call out. And so I saw her then. She switched to a coach, had a really bad experience with that coach, which most girls do. And then I think she's back. I don't know how she'll look, but she's got that wow factor. So anybody else you guys see on this list that kind of, sparked an interest?
I did see a name that I want to shout out, and I'm curious to see how her season goes. I don't know if she pronounces it as Tiana or Tayana, but Tiana Weymouth.
She's the one that's
Yeah,
always saying she's the youngest. Okay.
yeah, she won her pro card at a very young age, and I mean, I think she's gotten a couple of like top five plate, like maybe one or two top five placings, when she competed last time. So, I mean, I do think she'll be a rising star. She may just, I think that due to the nature of her age, obviously, there's always going to be that density factor. But like, I'm just
Yeah.
curious to see what she shows up looking like and how she compares against these other ladies who are like 10 to 15 years older than her.
Well, Steph Warden
Yeah.
is a girl
Oh,
from
yeah.
Boise who I'm friends with, and she's got the muscle. She's got the shape. She's got the wow factor. Because I followed, I was friends with her while she was chasing her pro card, and then when she finally got it, and I know she's been in some top call outs. Like,
Mhm.
so, that's the thing about these shows. It's, everybody's got a name or they don't have a name, but when you walk out under those lights, you see what you see. And there's a lot of
Yep.
names I just don't recognize in here.
I know, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of names that I didn't recognize either, but it'll be interesting to see if, I'm sure after the show we'll be very familiar with a few of them.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Robin, the promoter of this show, because Robin Mayer, they changed the format for the show. So in the morning, they're doing NPC men, prejudging awards, finals, everything. In the middle of the day, they're doing the pros, prejudging routines, finals. And in the evening, they're doing all the women prejudging routines. So like if you're an NPC man, you'll go on at like 9, you'll be done by 11:30, right? Pros 12 to 3, and then NPC women and do not quote me on this if you're competing. Look that crap up, but I'm just giving you an example. I think they plan the NPC women to be from like 2 to 5, something like that. So because it says starts at 9 a.m., ends at 5 p.m. And what's weird about this format is it makes the shows much faster. It doesn't seem like it would, but because you don't have all the athletes backstage at the same time, you only have just the men, and they literally just shuffle through and they do their stuff, and there are only men back there. And then you have just the pros, and then you have just the women. the shows run really efficiently, effectively, and fast, and it's so nice. So I wish more promoters would adopt this style.
I didn't know it was Robin's show. She's always so sweet.
Yeah, it's been her show since I've been going out there. This is my, I think since 2021, 5th year going. I don't think I went before COVID. Yeah. And they give away these amazing awards. They're like the Thor hammers.
Mhm.
And I've gotten so many like seconds in the overall. Lana got third in the pro show. Like I want one of those damn Thor hammers. So I have a young lady doing fit model who looks incredible. So we'll see. I don't even pretend to be like, yeah, she's gonna win because I, you know, like sometimes in bikini you just know, but in fit model it's still so new to
We
me.
don't know
I'm
yet.
not.
Yeah, fit model is still very. I've been really trying to study what's being rewarded and what's not, and
Yeah.
still it's kind
all
of
over
hard
the
to
map.
pinpoint. You know, it seems like it's still a little everywhere, but you know that makes sense.
You're
It's still.
not, there's not enough competitors for you to get a true sense because when there's only 9 or 10 girls in a show, the girl that wins is definitely going to look good, but she's not being pushed by like 30, 40 athletes. So,
Right.
in my opinion, right now, all that's happened is they've just taken the bikini division and basically cut it in half because I'm
Yeah.
seeing the bikini division is smaller. The fit model division is, 10 to 12 girls. Some of the bikini shows are between 15 and 20. And so you've just taken these women that would have all done bikini and just split them up.
Yeah.
It's not as if you've doubled the show. That, I think that's kind of the goal, but I think that that'll happen over time. Because if you think back to when bikini first started, um, the shows were small. It was like 8 or 10 girls. They didn't even have classes. They would just have 8 or 10 girls in the bikini division. Um, did I tell you guys my story about Missy?
Mm-mm.
No, I don't
Oh
think
my
so.
gosh. Oh my gosh. So I had a consult the other day with a young lady who is interested in competing in fit model. And she's like, yeah, I was a bikini pro back in the day. And I looked at her name and her name was Missy. Her last name is Schwimmer now. But I said, is your maiden name Missy Cole? And she's like, yeah, how do you know that? I said, you're gonna like, I have a weird memory, guys. Like it's bad. It's a weird problem. I was at the first ever bikini show in Orlando. It was the Mid Florida Muscle Classic, and they had the bikini division. And I had a friend competing, so I was there. And when they walked out, I thought, I'm not watching this. Bunch of
Hmm.
girls. Literally, it was just girls in off the rack bikinis with no posing standards. They just kind of stood there. And I have a picture of it because I took it, with the spin. That's how I'm dating myself. I had a Kodak camera where you had to spin it and click, spin and click.
Mhm.
Yeah. Phones didn't have cameras. My point being, the girl that won that show, I remembered her name was Missy Cole because she had a fantastic physique. And she ended up and she won the New York Pro. She got her pro card, won the New York Pro, did the Arnold, did the Olympia. Like she was one of the first like bikini pros out of Florida. So I just always just remembered seeing her at that show. Yeah. So I'm coaching her now. Like
Oh,
So
that's so
cool.
cool. That's
full
like a
circle
really
moment.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, full
And
circle
so
moment.
and she looks incredible. She's had some kids. She's lived her life. She's coming back. And guess what she wants to do?
Fit
Fit
model.
model.
Model. She did not like, well, I don't want to speak for her, but she's coming back to do pro fit model so we're building back up. And when they have the first pro fit model shows, I've got a couple girls like that now that are like, oh, so I
Yeah.
do think there is potential that it's going to reinvigorate women in the sport.
Oh, I absolutely think so too. I've had some girls get really excited about it. I think at the beginning I did have some girls that were kind of like, no, that's silly. But then, some of those same girls now are doing it and loving it. So, yeah, I'm excited for the potential of it. I've said this from the beginning. I think it's only going to be good for the sport. If anything, it's just going to open up the opportunity to more competitors. Because I will tell you too, I feel like I love it as a coach because, not for nothing, but it's hard, especially the past year or two, when you get people on the phone who they want to compete, but like they're very new to the sport and maybe even new to lifting. And it's really hard as a coach to tell somebody, hey, okay, realistically, we probably need a good like 2 to 3 years of just building before you can be on stage in bikini to do
Yeah.
well, right? But like as a coach, I always want to be honest with people, but that's not what people want to hear. So it's been a lot more enlightening to be able to tell people like, hey, we can get you on stage a little bit sooner by doing fit model. And, and then that also gives them a way to see, do they even like the essence of getting on stage and go, if you eventually want to do bikini, we can grow into bikini if that's, what you want to do. So I like it from that aspect too.
Yeah, I have my first fit model girl actually competing this weekend in the UK. And then I have a couple other girls I've talked to recently that have been competing in bikini. And I've tried to get across to them they need significantly more muscle to be competitive in bikini. And they still want to work towards bikini, but they still want to compete in the process. And fit model, I think, is great for a lot of that. So I'm excited to see how it goes.
So I just remembered the year that I went to that show and saw Missy Coles compete in Mid Florida was 2009. So we're talking about 16 years ago, right? A lot of the girls that should have done bikini back then would do figure. Because for many years, figure was the only division in women's, other than women's bodybuilding. It was like two drastically different. It was women's bodybuilding and figure. And so a lot of girls back then, figure girls were starting to, be more muscular. If you were genetically blessed, you had more muscle, or if you've been training longer. And so when the bikini division started, girls would still do figure and be like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, because it wasn't cool. It wasn't,
I know all about that, Paul.
bodybuilder. Right. It was kind of like men's physique when it first started. It was like the bodybuilders would be backstage like snickering at the guys in trunks. Like,
I mean, when me and Erin first got together, she didn't want to do bikini at all. She was like, I'm not doing that division.
right.
And then next thing you know, she did.
Then she went to the Olympia for it. So
Yeah.
I mean, but to be fair, the longer something's around, the more validity it adds to it.
For sure.
And immediately once you put something on the Olympia stage, you get a lot more interest.
Yep.
Oh wow, I can go to the Olympia. And so it's just going to be interesting to me. I don't know if they're going to add fit model to the bikini or to the Olympia stage immediately, or if it's going to take a little while.
I think they're doing it next year, right?
I think that's
I would expect.
Pro
So
shows,
here's
but
what
no
I would
Olympia,
expect.
you're right.
They would have the first pro fit model shows after this year's Olympia to be qualifiers for the next Olympia with the same cutoff as all the other divisions.
Yeah.
But they could wait. I don't know. I don't know if they'd wait a year. I don't
remember when they did wellness too. They had it at the first Olympia, but they just had it all at prejudging. They weren't on the main stage.
Well, that's going to be the case. They're going to all be at the expo. They might even do prejudging and finals. But honestly, if they had another division to the Olympia,
wellness the first year, they didn't do the main stage.
They really change it. Like they really change the Olympia around, because if you're going to have 50 or 60 men's physique, 50 or 60 bikini, well, that's the other question. And this is something I thought about the other day. If you're adding pro fit model, is that going to subtract from pro bikini? Are the promoters that are doing pro fit model going to only have one division? Because it's expensive. You have to have the money to pay the pro athletes. You also have to pay the IFBB their sanctioning fees. So to have a pro, and for those that aren't familiar with pro competitors, pro open competitors do not pay an entry fee. So as a promoter, you're having a show and you're getting $0 from the pros. You're hoping that they bring people in. They don't. And here's why. Pro competitors travel. So all the people that come to a show are the local people. Who's the most, maybe Laura Lee, if she announces she's doing a show, like let's say, because we're going to talk about girl power. If Laura Lee was to say, I'm doing girl power a few weeks out or a month or, something out, people would travel to see her. But I was at girl power one year with Ashley Kaltwasser and no one was there because they did it after prejudging. It was empty.
Yeah, that was last year. I remember because she did it last year, which, and I mean, girl power, not for nothing, but I would say out of the two lists that we were looking at for the pro list this weekend for pro bikini, girl power seems to have a lot more of like, I guess we could say heavy hitters, like names that, former Olympians that are on the list. So I know Evan and I are excited to be able to see that in person when we're there, because there are some interesting names on the list that, it'll be interesting to see how they show up on that day.
Yeah, well, let's go through, because like my eyes, I haven't seen her compete in forever, is Lexus Redmond.
Yes.
So Lexus won Republic of Texas 2 years ago when I was there. She openly discussed some health issues. She still did the Olympia, but she wasn't her best that she was at, at Republic of Texas. And I want to say at Republic of Texas, she beat somebody like Ashland, or she beat somebody, I forget who she beat, but it was somebody of note. You've also got Alice Roca, who has won some shows. I think the obvious favorite right now, because she just got fifth at the Arnold and second at the Charlotte show, is Ariana. But there's another Olympian that's going to be standing right next to her, Ariel
Yeah.
Barley, who hasn't been on stage in a minute. And sometimes when you take a little time off and you come back, and I know Ariel's won a show in front of Sandy before, so Sandy knows her. So like, it's going to be very interesting. You got another Olympian, Jessica Delias, who hasn't been on stage in a minute.
Yeah.
Anybody else you guys see on there that stood out? I did say Chantel Hall because she beat
Mhm.
Lana a couple of years ago, but the last time she competed, I did not see the same level. Oh, Nade. So Nade
Yeah.
qualified for the
Today.
Olympia with me 2 years ago. And I think
Yeah.
she's already qualified for this next Olympia. Didn't she
Did
win a
she?
show did she qualify for this Olympia, or did she qualify for last year's Olympia?
It was last year's Olympia.
It was last
Don't
year's,
quote.
I think. I don't think she's.
I
She
just
won
have
a
to.
show at the very end of the year. I think she's qualified already.
Okay. Was it No, that was Daytona.
That was
No,
2 years
It
ago.
was, let me look it up. Oh, you guys know I have a weird memory.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I've been seeing some of her glutes are just, there are no glutes, in my opinion, that compare to hers. That's just my
They
personal
don't make any
opinion.
sense.
Oh yeah,
Um,
her physique is phenomenal. The fact that she's only been competing a couple of years, I
Oh,
mean,
I
and she's
know.
got one of those stories like getting to know her, when I was coaching her, she's like, yeah, when I used to work out in college, she would get made fun of for how muscular she was, so she was afraid to lift. She's one of those few girls that will like, I'm afraid to get too big. She could get too big if she pushed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me just double check the bikini Olympia list right here. Here it is. So far we've got, wait, what's happening here? Okay, Deanna Dang, Yulia, oh, she's not on here. Okay. No, she is. Nade Nador. She's right there. Yep. She's already qualified.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, yeah,
So
it'll be an interesting show for sure, because definitely a pretty hefty lineup. So I'm excited to watch.
it's gonna be interesting because it's gonna be a lot, like I think based on what we saw at Charlotte, Ariana, great muscle. The conditioning isn't gonna be as good as somebody like Nade, potentially. And then you've got who's Ariel, who's got like a perfect blend of a little bit of muscle, a little bit of condition, a little bit of shape. I haven't seen her in a while. It's going to be very interesting call outs at that show. So I'll definitely be, trying to watch the live stream or just messaging you guys for feedback. Um, yeah.
For sure.
It's these early shows that are going to really determine, what's going to happen at Pittsburgh. You start to see some of these matchups. It also makes me think like someone like Lexus is definitely going to do Pittsburgh, right? Because I'm friends with her boyfriend. I know they used to live there. I don't think they live there anymore. I think they moved to Texas, but she's done Pittsburgh in the past and she's done well there. So she's probably wanting to win a show like that, you know.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I gotta imagine the day if she's already qualified and she's popping into girl power with her busy schedule, that's maybe a warm up for Pittsburgh. I don't know. Yeah.
Perhaps. Because after this week, what,
Can we
Pittsburgh
can
6?
can we just take a moment to like listen to this? Portugal, Italy, Ukraine, Canada, like pretty international competitors at the girl power.
Yeah. Bolivia.
Bolivia, Italy, Ukraine, that Portugal, that's awesome. And I think last year when I was at that show, there was a couple girls from Australia. So maybe because it's Orlando and it's one of those cities that's like
The
easy to
international
travel
city.
to, and it's
Yeah.
Perhaps, yeah. Yeah, well, should we dive into our little mini topic of today?
yeah, we're down the rabbit hole, aren't we?
We are, but I
We
think
are.
you guys can let us know in the comments if you think otherwise. But I think some people probably like the conversational banter. But we're gonna dive into, not that this is like a super extensive topic, but I do think like us three, we were chatting beforehand, and I think this is a very relevant and important thing to talk about. So we're gonna kind of talk about protecting your peace in prep and kind of shutting out that outside noise that you should shut out, and the philosophy of like too many cooks in the kitchen, meaning like having too many people in your ear telling you, you know, to do different things in prep, or telling you you look a certain way or you're not going to be ready. Like this idea of too many cooks in the kitchen is something that, you know, I want to expand upon a little bit, because I think we've all had clients that have maybe dealt with, you know, having too many cooks in the kitchen, and it can be crippling. I mean, it can be really overwhelming too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just kind of depends on the type of person that you're working with, right? I mean, typically people fall into one or two camps. Either they're like information seekers and they're constantly looking for something. And I find that those particular individuals, they always think maybe they're missing something, right? Or maybe their coach is not telling them everything there is to know. And then they go out searching it on their own, right? And for some coaches that may be overwhelmed, I could see how that could be a case with it, especially, and there are a lot of coaches out there that do miss a lot of things, right? So I can understand where they're coming from. And also, too, from the other side of that is how much work goes into a prep, right? And if you're an athlete putting so much work into a prep, you want to make sure that you're doing everything you can. Now, typically, I think this is more newer competitors that kind of fall into this camp than seasoned competitors. I think those competitors more coach hop. Until you get to a really high level, at least with it, and they're always looking for that secret sauce, right? Other than time and consistency.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Evan. And I think a lot of times it's, you know, I think it comes from a good place. Like it's a lot of the type A people that, you know, are very meticulous, are very detail oriented. And it's usually a lot of people that, you know, maybe people that follow a lot of different competitors and a lot of different coaches on social media, which I'm not saying you shouldn't. But, you know, sometimes you may follow an athlete and you may hear them talk about something that their coach is having them do. And then in your mind, if you know your coach is not having you do that, you automatically think, oh gosh, you know, am I missing something, right? Should I be doing that? And like that's a valid thought. I get that completely. And that's why like I love when I have clients who maybe ask me about certain things. They're like, hey, should I be doing this? You know, and I'll tell them, hey, you know what? No, I'm not having you do this, and here's why, right? Because it's like if you I appreciate people that like all the detail and like to track all the different things, but there does come a point where it can just almost be counterintuitive and can make the process more stressful, right? So, and I think it comes from a good place though at the end of the day, but I do think it's a lot of the type A people that seek out a lot of information that tend to fall into this kind of loophole of like, you know, the too many cooks in the kitchen, or, you know, and we can talk about this side of it too eventually, is when you're, you know, I hear this one all the time of athletes being in the gym, and so at their gym, or a trainer comes up to them and, you know, tries to get in their ear about like, oh, you know, you're too small for X division or whatnot. Like there's that
Yeah.
side of it too.
That's
Yeah.
probably the most frustrating part as a coach who coaches people all around the world, is that you don't get to filter what people see and hear. But, you know, you can look at it negatively and go, oh man, it's so bad. But I also look at it positively, because that's how we build our reputation, right? Like when one of our clients is happy, they tell other people when they get asked about. So yeah, you know, and this is part of the reason I love doing video replies to clients, is because when they ask me a question, hey coach, I met a girl in the gym, you know, she's taken this substance, and then I have to know a response to that. You know, I can't be the coach that just says just do it because I said so, or this is what all the girls do, or this is what the pros do, or this is what the Olympians do, or you know, which is a pretty typical response. You know, because I'll have a consult with someone and they'll say, yeah, I asked my coach about refeeds and they shot me down, or I asked my coach about why we're doing hit cardio and they shot me down. Not to say that there aren't valid reasons for doing things or not doing things, but there should be a valid reason given, or at least an opinion given. And this is where, you know, as a coach, I'm very confident that, you know, the philosophies and the reasons I've created have a backing in either anecdote, evidence. You know, I've been doing this a long time. I'm not trying to make things uh like safer for the purposes of, you know, saying they're safer. I'm trying to figure out the best way to win and keep my athletes healthy and happy. And that's probably going to shake the tree. I mean, there were some pretty big coaching teams. You know, we were talking about competitors from 2009, 2010. There was a team in Florida and a team in California that dominated the sport. They're gone now because they didn't do a good job coaching, right? And so as a coach now, the responsibilities are a little higher. People aren't just going to hire you because you coach X competitor. I've actually had people sign up with me that are like, oh, you've had people go to the Olympia? And I'm like, Yeah. Like it's not necessarily, that's not necessarily the only way to succeed in the sport. You know, people, you treat them well, you teach them. I don't know about you guys, but that's a lot of the questions I get from my clients. Hey, I have a client. What would you do in this situation? So they like a little bit of guidance in that aspect.
Yeah, I think we all get like direct messages and phone calls and texts and stuff from competitors and people we don't really know that say, "Hey, like I've listened to the podcast or I listened to something here and I feel like I'm not in a good position," and they'll start going over some stuff with me here. And they'll say, well, I've talked to my coach. I was like, well, first of all, have you talked to your coach about this? Yes, I've talked to my coach about it. It just doesn't feel like it's addressed. And then I'll get some information from it. And a lot of times, and this is, I think, what separates us from others, a lot of times I'll look at that and say, I don't think that's out of bounds what they're doing.
Right.
Like, I think what they're saying is correct. Your calories are not low. Your cardio is not high. I think you got a long ways to go. And I think that this is probably the best route to get you there with the limited information I know. Right. But a lot of people aren't going to do that. They're going to see that as a possible client. And they're going to say, well, no, that's abusive and try to take that client away from them. So, again, it's about having like moral character and values and not everyone has that. Right. Not everyone has that, unfortunately.
Yeah, it depends where you're coming from as a coach. If you're coming from a place of scarcity and you're nervous to lose clients, yeah, you're going to act differently. But I've literally had phone calls with people, gotten off the phone with them and just been like, hey, like I'm not the best coach for you based on
Hmm.
what your goals are and what you want to do. It's not a good fit. And if you are a money first coach, you're never going to be able to admit that. You're going to be like, just pay
Yep.
me and we'll figure it out. No,
I had a
that's not.
consultation last week with a guy, and a lot of his principles and values and things he went over, I just told him, I said, I don't think we're going to align a lot of this stuff. We're just not. We don't see eye to eye in a lot of this. And I just don't think we're going to be a good fit for each other.
Yeah,
And
I had a consult with a young lady she was a decent competitor, was wanting to do nationals, and she was on 5 different steroids. And she was like, I love it when I'm on this, and I love it when I'm on that. And I was like, I'm not your coach. Like, that's not, she placed more value in the stuff she was doing than in the
yeah,
work in the gym and, you know, kind of all over the map. And so like with coaching, I try to keep those variables pretty small. And I call it like robot mode, right? Like you just get into robot mode. It's, it's consistency and effort over time equals success, not consistency and effort and a ton of drugs and only 12 weeks.
Right, right. But yeah, unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people don't want to deal with the fact that it does take time to get to where they want to get. A lot of people want the quickest route possible.
Listen,
And
there's nothing wrong with that. And listen, I'm just, it just doesn't really align with me. It's,
yeah.
it, yeah, agreed,
if
agreed.
someone thinks that 2.5 or 5 milligrams of Anavar is good, then 20 must be better. That's not, that's not what I'm gonna be on board with. Um,
Same
yeah,
thing as if someone thinks anything over 30 minutes of cardio is abusive, I'm not going to align with that person either.
no,
Right.
I love some cardio. Yeah. I'm actually doing a mini cut right now because a new product is releasing in a couple weeks. I'm going up to Core Nutritionals headquarters, so it just gave me a reason to like lock in my diet and my cardio. So
Hmm.
I'm already down a couple pounds, so I'll be getting shredded here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the too many cooks in the kitchen like scenarios, because I'm sure you guys get this too sometimes where like I know I got it like years ago, and especially I think it depends what type of gym you go to too. Like if you go to a gym that there's no other bodybuilders there. It's a very gen pop oriented gym. Like you may get comments, in the gym of like, oh, gosh, you look too skinny, or you may even there may be a trainer at the gym who kind of jumps in your ear saying, oh, your coach has you doing bikini, you're more figure, right? Like I'm sure we've all had clients that have come to us. I had a client actually last week. She checked in and she was really in her head because she's like, I went to this posing seminar and they told me I was definitely wellness, and she's not wellness. She's just, when she loses more body fat, she's gonna be bikini and she's gonna be very balanced. But I'm sure you guys deal with those scenarios all the time too, and I would definitely classify that as like letting too many cooks in the kitchen get in your ear. Thankfully, like I'm very thankful that I have clients a lot of times that will come to me when things are bothering
Yeah.
them, or if they hear somebody tell them like, oh, your wellness. But I I think it happens to every competitor at one point in time, having just people giving their unsolicited opinions and advice, even though you're not asking for it.
I find that people that give unsolicited advice, especially to competitors, are people that have never seen anything outside their local shows.
Yeah.
That is a vast majority of them. The stuff I hear from my clients, from people at their gym who have never, one, either never competed or competed like 10 years ago on something, is absolutely crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me. And they think they just know everything. But that's just kind of society in general, right? And social media in general and the way we are. But yeah, most people I know that come out and they say, hey, you're this, or you're this, or you're this. I can tell you, for everyone listening, for 95% of the audience, probably 99%, you're probably not wellness. You're probably not.
If it's
That
a
is a
question, you're
rare
not.
breed.
If
Yes,
you're
if it's
like,
a
oh, I don't
question,
know,
you're
you're
not.
not.
You're not. You're
Because
not.
the problem with wellness is the difference between NPC and even national wellness and the Olympia is so huge. The difference between NPC and national bikini and Olympia bikini is not huge. So like if you're not even sure your wellness in the NPC, you are not going to go that far in the pros. It is such an over exaggeration of muscle in the lower body that even the girls that are predominantly like lower body dominant when they start competing, then they do it for years, then they add the drugs. Those are the girls that are succeeding at the Olympia. Um, I saw a statistic the other day about the number of females that are taking um, performance enhancing drugs right now. And the number in Brazil was like quadruple the US.
Mhm.
So like down there, it's
Doesn't
just more,
shock
it's
me.
more a part of the culture. It's much more normal. You know, they love the big freaky muscle in the lower body. I don't want to speak for a whole culture, but like, you know, I've had some of my Brazilian athletes tell me like they're encouraged at a young
Yeah,
age to like build that lower body up.
and it's not a little bit of drugs either.
Well, yeah, we the freakiest bodybuilders at the current rate are a lot of Brazilians. You know,
Yep.
you've got your, you know, even the men, even you know, like your Remodino and um, what's the guy who's doing the Pittsburgh Pro? He's a big boy. Vito, good
Carlos.
Vito, good Vito's
Oh,
Brazilian.
Vito.
Yeah.
Yeah, that guy
Um,
Carlos, the men's physique guy, is
Carlos
doing classic
Kaiki,
physique
yeah.
up
And
there.
then,
Yep.
Issa's won the Olympia, Angelica Teixeira. I think the last couple wellness were all Brazilian.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I'm sure there's somebody in figure that's Natalia Coelho was, and then she switched and won it in women's physique, right?
Yeah, yeah. She won women's
So
physique
yeah,
too. And she's
Brazil's
young, young.
probably got the perfect blend of genetics for bodybuilding.
Yeah, it's tough to say no to that, especially for females in a lot of the glute dominated divisions.
Yeah, yeah. The real problem with the cooks in the kitchen thing is if if you're an athlete and you don't trust your coach, it's going to make you insecure.
Yep.
If you're an athlete and you trust your coach, it's just going to make you either ask questions or have a conversation. Um, I never really get offended by it when someone's like, "Oh, well, this coach in the gym says I need this if I want to be
Mhm.
successful." I've been doing this long enough, and I'm like, "Hey, listen, if you want to go work with the coach in your gym, that's fine, but let's compare resumes."
Right.
Like, my favorite is when someone in the gym goes, "Man, if you did this, you would look better." But really, the only reason you're talking to that person is because they look
Because
awesome
they already
already,
look good.
and you just want to ride their coattails. Um,
Yeah.
so
I
Yeah.
think what you have to realize is if you are somebody getting those comments from whether it's a trainer in the gym or a local coach in the gym or whatever, a lot of times that's like, I hate to say it, but that's their way of trying to kind of poach you as a client. Like they probably do that to everybody. I hate to say it. You're probably not the only person they're going up to and saying these remarks and comments to. That's probably part of their business tactic and how they get clients. Cause, not for nothing, but like the best coaches don't need to go around trying to get clients that way, right? Like they're going to get clients from word of mouth. So yeah.
honestly, if
And I,
you're trying to poach clients, it's a bad look. Like there's nothing more annoying than me than I see coaches backstage with their clients talking to my clients. Like literally, I've had a coach say like, "Oh, you should switch to me," and I'm like, "We just won the show, and you're here with your clients. what does that say about your confidence in your clients? It baffles me. But you're dealing with sometimes, like I said, people that aren't in the sport for the right reason. Heavy narcissism. Um, they place more value on their perceived value because of their placings of their competitors versus their actual value to all the people they coach. And so the 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 trainer in the gym or the person that approaches you that wants to get on board, just try to figure out what
Serving
their
game.
reason is being, because listen, I hesitate, but I would love to just be able to walk up to somebody and be like, hey, you're doing that wrong, or hey, if you need help with your posing, I'd like to help you, genuinely, out of just helping people. um yeah, so you just got to understand their motives, why they're doing it.
And I honestly don't mind when people. I like it when clients ask me questions and say, "Hey, this person said this, or this person said this, or this person suggests this," because it gives me a chance to be able to explain myself, right, and explain, and a chance to be able to further that trust between the client and coach relationship. Because listen, like, especially if it's a client that hasn't worked with you for a long time, they may trust you to a certain extent, but they trust is built over time, right? And it's built through times like when you can ask questions openly to it and then not bark back at them and say, yo, don't listen to that person. That person's stupid. Or just say, hey, yeah, you're going to get this type of stuff because you look impressive, and you look impressive because we're doing a lot of the right things. But what exactly did they say, and kind of have a conversation about it. Like, I don't think that's a bad way to go. I look at an opportunity to be able to actually, create more of a bond with the client in most cases with it. As long as it's not like an every week thing where, hey, should we do this? This person did this. Let's do this. This person did this. It's also how they approach it too, and saying, hey, this person suggested this. What do you think? That's different than saying, hey, this person said
100%.
we need to do this. Why don't we do this? That's a different dynamic.
Yeah,
And I
100%.
think the longer that you are in the industry, and the longer you are an athlete, the more you start to realize, like, everybody has a different approach, right? Like, there is no one, obviously we know there's no one size fits all, but I think it's really easy too. Like, there's a lot of top level athletes, like, Olympians that have YouTube channels, right? And and they'll give insight into like what they do in their prep. And I love that. I love the transparency, but it's also really easy to look at something, somebody like, let's say, Miss Olympia, and see, oh gosh, she's doing this in prep. Like, maybe I should be doing that. She's Miss Olympia. Maybe that's what it takes, right? But realizing that everybody has different approaches to prep. Like, all those ladies on the bikini Olympia stage, they're all getting up there probably doing something different, right? Some of them are on a meal plan, some of them are on macros, some of them, do hit cardio, some of them don't do hit cardio. I think it's about realizing it's not a matter of there's this one universal magical approach that is going to work for everybody, right? Everybody's going to
Mhm.
have a different approach, and it's about kind of learning what's going to work best for you over time. And that's, I think that's what makes our job kind of exciting, is like, no one athlete that we coach is going to have that 100% same protocol that's going to get them to stage. It's a matter of collaborating with the athlete and figuring out what's going to work best for them.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of my favorite things to do is I say, everybody backstage, pull out your peak week plans,
Right.
compare notes. They're all different. You got a different meal plan. You
Mhm.
got different sodium, carbohydrate, all the variables are different. The philosophies are the same, right? Like
Yeah.
the decrease in cardio, the increase in food, typically, um, but that level of, like if you compete, that's what you want. You don't want to feel like you're in a factory just being, pressed and thrown out the door and best of luck. And I feel like that's pretty much what you get a lot of times with the coaches that are, you know, they're putting one athlete or two athletes on a pedestal, and then everybody else is just getting, thrown into like little groups, or they're getting the
Yeah.
same plans as everybody else. Um, and they're just being told like that's what you do. Um, it's it's why I love my job. My favorite feedback is like, I don't even feel like I'm in prep. My last coach took a week to answer. He would always yell at me, or she would always yell at me. So like, you know, I love the idea that we try to make the sport better. And very few coaches, guys, have ever come up to me and said, "Hey, you win a lot of overalls and pro cards, and you have girls who are going to be. What do you do different?" There's been a few, but I do it all the time. When I see coaches have success, I'm picking their brain, you know, not as much anymore because that was my first, years in coaching. But Dr. Joe, who I have speak all the time, technically he was my competition when I first started. He was coaching a lot of athletes to the stage, you know. Last year Cash had a lot of success. Me and Cash talk all the time. I love to chat with him. He's an open book. He's very raw, and he straight up will tell me what's going on. So sometimes you feel like people have a secret formula. Ask them about it. It might not be as secret as you think. It might just be, oh, I'm just doing this or I'm just doing that, or you know. So I like to help people. I think most of the times people ask questions and they expect it to be more complicated.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I tell girls all the time, so there's a show coming up in let's say 8 weeks, and a girl will reach out to me. Be like, I really want to do this show in 8 weeks. And I'll be like, what's your expectation? Oh, I want to win. Okay, you reached out to me 8 weeks out and you want to win. I had a girl last year plan for this show. She's been planning for the show for a whole year. Do you think you're going to beat a girl that's been planning for a whole year to do a show? Building, improving, cutting. She's done a warm up show. We're fine tuned at this point. So just remember that bodybuilding is a delayed gratification, and sometimes the athlete that you see on stage has just been planning better, doing it longer, maybe has better genetics, but um, it's I think sometimes people think it's like, oh, I didn't do this one diuretic, or I didn't do this
Yeah.
one anti-estrogen, or oh, I didn't do HIIT cardio. Sorry, it's none of those things. It's planning properly.
Agreed. Well, I'm curious. So, because I think this also has a lot to do with the whole cooks in the kitchen philosophy, and like, there's no right or wrong answer to this. I just am curious how you guys manage this and how you feel about it. Because obviously, with our prep athletes, like, there are times where we're kind of having to maybe refer them out to whether it's a posing coach or maybe somebody that's training them. So, and I feel like this is becoming a little bit more prevalent. Like within the past year, you're seeing some people that are more so like very niche. They do training or they just do posing. So I'm curious how you guys handle that, or what your experience is with having clients who maybe have not only a posing coach, but maybe somebody else who trains them. Like, just, I don't know, your experience with that. Because I feel like it can work really well with the right people, but it can also get kind of sticky fast if an athlete has three different people that are helping them with all these different things, especially if those three different people maybe don't have the same morals or don't align with their approaches.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on the athlete, right? I think it's important if people are having trouble executing movements correctly and they need an in-person trainer who's qualified to help walk them through that. I can understand that. If it's just a trainer, I think that can be fine for some cases with it. Um, it can get a little bit dicey when it comes to that. With posing, I've never ran into an issue when it comes to posing coaches, like, at all, ever. I'm normally in communication with them, and I'll say, hey, well, ask her about this, because I won't overstep on some people that I work with that I know really understand posing, and they'll give suggestions to my client. I'll look at them like, well, how about just try this and let her and ask her and see what she thinks, right? Because I have a good relationship with those posing coaches on there. When it comes to the training side of things, it's not something I've really fallen into a lot. I've actually suggested to a few of my clients that I know will not go to failure. I just know they don't, that I suggest they work with somebody in person to help them find that failure point. Um, or if they just struggle with connecting with the muscle, right? Like, I help a lot with training critiques as much as I possibly can, not being there, as much as I possibly can. But sometimes people need that little nudge. But I don't think it needs to be something that's an everyday or a constant thing. I think that's just overdoing everything, personally.
Yeah, I can only think of one instance I had, and this was like years ago. I had a girl, and she Like I'm all for people. Like I've had athletes reach out to me before asking, do you think it would be beneficial if I just hire a trainer to like take me through the workouts you're giving me, but just push me? And I'm like,
Yeah.
absolutely, right. I did have one instance where, and thankfully this was an athlete that was very open and communicative with me about this experience she was having. It was the trainer. He was also like a local coach, and just in her ear about certain things about like, oh, you should be doing this, you should be eating this. And thankfully that client was very communicative with me, and we both decided that he was probably not a relationship we needed to have in the future. We kind of learned our lesson. But I do think that there can be some pro in having maybe a trainer teach you to how to achieve that failure, like you said, Evan, because some people think they're training hard, but they're really not. And we sometimes can sense and know that as coaches. And now, do I think that every athlete needs to have an in-person trainer for the rest of their career? No. I mean, if you can afford to do so and you like to do so, that's your decision. But that can add up really quickly too, because those sessions are definitely pretty expensive, but they can be good, maybe to get a couple in the beginning of your journey for sure.
And look, I mean, I can point to a couple of instances where I just knew the client was really struggling with failure. When they've worked with me for an extended period of time, we're in a growing phase and they look no different. There's a big training issue going on there. Like, you will progress. You absolutely will progress. And I'll bring it up to them, say, I would be willing to bet my entire bank account you are not training hard enough or going to failure, because I can show you tons of examples of girls that I work with that I know do go to failure, and look at their progression. And let's look at your progression here. Something is not working here. Your food's in a good spot. You're definitely in a surplus here. The weight is moving, but nothing is happening physically with this. Like, your ratios are not changing. And that's a conversation I have to have a lot of times with them, right? And a few of those clients, I was lucky enough to be able to actually train with them in person, and it was exactly what I thought it was going to be, right? Exactly what I thought it was going to be. So you can pick up on that stuff. It's not rocket science. It's really not.
Yeah,
Either that, or they just do not have the
we
ability to put on
definitely live
muscle.
in an era of like, the whole evidence-based approach. You'll hear people be like, "Oh, you don't need to train to failure to grow, or you don't need to train heavy to grow." Listen, man, go look at the best athletes. They train hard, they train as heavy as they can handle with good form, and they're constantly pushing for an extra 5 pounds, an extra set, an extra rep. Like it's it's a mindset of like progression in the gym. It's not going to the gym to exercise. It's going to the gym to put on
Right.
tissue. Um,
You
and
have
that
to
doesn't mean
almost look.
you don't have to walk around like angry, but I'll be in the gym, but when my set starts, I'm a different person for that 35 to 45 to 60, whatever it is. I'm locked in, feeling the muscle, trying to get to failure, maybe doing a drops, whatever it is. That's a different person for that short time frame, and that's something that, yeah, most it really takes training around somebody that's training hard to understand what training hard is.
Yep.
It really does. And that's why, and we've had this discussion on here before, and I know some people were in the comments like saying otherwise, but like that's why I do really think your training atmosphere can make a big difference. I mean, if you really want to level up your athleticism, training around people, and I know not everybody has the leisure of living near like a gym that does have bodybuilders there, but like if you have a gym near you that has, a lot of bodybuilders, it can make a big difference just being in that atmosphere. Like I notice a huge difference between when I train at my crunch versus when I train at Golds. It has a lot of bodybuilders, right? Like every time I go to Golds, I just push harder because that energy from the people around me, like it really bleeds onto you. So I think that, I will go to the grave saying your training atmosphere really can make a difference.
I'm going to draw a good example. I really just thought of this off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure it rings true. It's pretty simple to train to failure if we're doing drop sets or rest pauses or something like that, because anyone can do 30, 40 reps and be fried, right? Anyone can do that. It's also incredibly systemic fatiguing. When you know you progressed in the gym is when you can tax that muscle by just doing a straight set. When you can feel the muscle, contract the muscle, control the eccentric, explode out of it, keep good tempo, and tax the muscle without and going to failure and truly feeling it without having to do a drop set for every damn movement, you're going to progress in a really positive way. Because once
Yeah,
you
the
start doing drop sets a
drop
ton,
sets and going beyond failure and those kind of things, rest pause, should be used sparingly.
yes.
Like, you know,
But
times when you have
that's most
less
of the time
time
the
in the
only time people go
gym.
to failure.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately that's the only time people know how to go to failure is when it's something to past that extreme,
Yeah.
right? Not to failure, they know how to go past failure, but they don't know how to go just to failure.
Yeah. I mean, that's knowing your body very well.
Yeah,
You know, knowing when you got a couple reps left in the tank, and also knowing that if you get this next rep, your next set is ruined. So
done.
sometimes is it worth that next rep? Um,
And that's where it takes being around somebody who really knows and understands training, right? It's hard to know it unless you've been around it. It really is difficult. It is.
yeah, you know, the unfortunate side of having too many cooks in the kitchen, like you said. So let's say I have a girl pose with someone, and then within a few weeks, the girl is now working, has ghosted me and is now working with that person as a coach. I will never refer them another posing client so long as I live. And there's a few people on that list already. Um, so yeah, they're, you know, understand that this is a small sport. And like, if you do bad things, everybody knows about it. They all hear. I'll never publicly, you know, like bash somebody unless they truly, truly, if I feel like it's going to provide value. But I certainly will, you know, if you show me who you are, I'm going to believe you. So, you know, this is why like good posing coaches, they are slammed with business because they, you know, you know, Lana right now for me is top of the list. And why? She works with multiple divisions. She shows up on time. She's got great energy. She knows her shit. She's going to the Olympia. She's very current, but also she's not in their ears like, oh, who's your coach? You should switch to this. I've literally had girls call me after their posing session and be like, oh, this posing person just told me that my glutes are imbalanced and that I need to work with this team to fix it. And
Yeah.
I'd be like, first of all, your glutes are not imbalanced. It's the freaking picture. You know how impossible it is to have imbalanced glutes? You'd have to
Or
have like a
it's
broken leg for like 2 years.
or it's so easy to look a lot of girls, I will say, a lot of girls think they have imbalanced glutes when really it's just if you're in bikini or even fit model, you pose so hard on one side that your hips and your pelvis they're a little unlevel in your back pose. And all that takes is just start posing on your other side or get some body work done. It's not like it's a
Well, and
true
honestly, like I've had girls say it to me, and I said, well, let's just change the lighting in your pictures. You got overhead lighting and it's at an angle, so the shadows look a little funny. You put on some straight lighting, and all of a sudden, oh, their glutes are symmetrical. But that
right,
was an
right.
issue where that person had done it multiple times, and they're involved in the sport in many aspects. I have never sent one person to them since.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and shout out to my client for saying something to me. Like, yeah, like because a lot of
Yeah,
times people don't want to start feuds. They don't. So I never start feuds. I just pull back.
right.
I'm
And
not
that's
I'm
just
not I'm not your friend anymore. Bye.
Yeah, that's just something, I think we can all attest to the fact of like, I always respect when I have a client who maybe comes to me just, like my client that I mentioned a little while ago about like going to a posing seminar and being told she was wellness. Like, I always appreciate when clients bring that up to me and give me give me the opportunity to explain and kind of talk them off of a ledge. And I think that's kind of the moral of today's topic and story is, you should instill a lot of trust in that coach that you hire for your prep, that coach that's manning your nutrition, manning your training. It is great to work with other people too along the journey, such as posing coaches or somebody who trains you, but I do think it's important to have kind of that one center person that you feel like you can confidently go to and that you
Mhm.
can trust with anything, and that can kind of be your soundboard too if you need it. So I think that's important. And we've talked about this before, but like we all get DMs sometimes from athletes who are maybe working with other coaches asking us, hey, what do you think of my protocol? And my first thought is always like, have you talk to your coach about this, because like I think that's important, right? If you truly trust your coach, you should be able to go to your coach and ask them like, hey, why are we doing this, right? And if you don't feel that level of trust within that coach to be able to do so, I'm sorry, you're probably not working with the right person. I do think that that trust aspect is something that you should absolutely consider before you even, bite the bullet and hire your coach.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's a weird world, bodybuilding, and so you accept that there's going to be weird stuff that you do. I say that all the time, like, that's why I love talking about the science of nutrition and cardio and PEDs. Having Corey on last week was amazing. If you guys haven't listened to that episode, be sure and go back. We'll probably have her back on because I think it created a lot of questions. Um, so I think she's going to be kind of a regular for us. But the the sport has built into it a level of, it's going to be hard, it's going to be weird, and you can just fall into some, I guess, bad situations, which is the one thing that I love about being a coach, is figuring out how to avoid them altogether. That's there's nothing better. Um, so I just had another client get pregnant. Um, she turned pro last year and she's pregnant now.
I
Daraja's
saw
got a baby. Anne Marie had a baby. So I love these full circle, seeing people healthy out of the sport. And what's funny is the week before she had messaged me and said, we're trying, but I'm considering competing if it doesn't work. And then I see her posting so, like,
I
yeah,
I It's actually funny that you mentioned that, because kind of on the flip side of that, I had a client this past weekend and she competed in her first show. Shout out to Liza. I know she listens to this, but she got first in her class at St. Louis, and she's 13 months postpartum. And I saw her post something today on her story, and she's still breastfeeding, not as much as she once was, but like we got her on stage lean, won first. She's still producing milk, still able to breastfeed, like still healthy. And I think that's so cool. I know not everybody can do that, but I thought that was kind of neat to see.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
It's, I think it's assumed that this sport is unhealthy. And I made a reel last week that kind of went crazy, at least for my page, about a competitor saying, like, basically she had something to eat post show and that started a 4-month binge. And my point was, like, it wasn't the post show bite that started the binge. It was the prep, the way you prepped. You don't have to wreck your hormones, have an eating disorder or poor association with food, or stop going to the gym because you do a show. Um, I have, I'd say almost all my athletes are back in the gym on Monday like nothing happened. In fact, Sarah, one of our coaches who just competed, she won her class at Charlotte, and it's a week post show now. She's actually below stage weight on diet break macros. Went out and
Yeah.
had her free meal, right back to normal routine. She's on 30 minutes of cardio. She's on like 180 carb and 50 fat, if I'm remembering correctly, and she's 106 pounds, and she's below stage weight. And we got 6 weeks till our next show. So there is a way to do this. And I hate to sound preachy, but it warrants repeating. And so when someone comes to me and says, oh, there's somebody in the gym is saying this and saying that, or saying you can't prep on macros, I just want to be like, let me check the calendar. Is it 20 years ago? Like, what's happening?
The amount of high level coaches out there today that are coaching open bodybuilders, I'm not going to name names, but everyone knows these coaches' names. They may not coach specifically 100% macros, but that's almost exactly what it is. It's crazy to see the evolution of this stuff where they're giving choices on things. It's not 6 ounces of chicken. It's, hey, have 8 ounces of lean meat and 50 grams of a complex carb.
Yeah.
Or like,
It's general like
yeah.
that. So it's allowing people to make some choices. And choice is not the issue. It's when you can't regulate yourself is the issue in a prep. And you have to be able to regulate yourself. And if you can't regulate yourself where you need a meal plan, you need someone to tell them, if you understand this stuff, right? If you understand it, if you understand macros, you understand what you digest, well, you understand all this, but you can't control yourself to make certain decisions, you need someone to tell you every step of the way, you're probably going to struggle post-show on things because that's not going to be there afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, there shouldn't be an on-off switch. That's the biggest thing that I've found with binge eating and competing in the sport is there's a on-off switch. There's I'm on prep or I'm not.
Mhm.
And if they are off their diet, see ya. It's going to be a couple days of just indulging because they know the only other option is being back on the plan.
Yep.
Instead of going, well, I ate a piece of pizza. Should I just binge for 3 days or should I just adjust my macros for the rest of the day to fit a piece of damn pizza?
Mhm.
So yeah, it's yeah.
Well, anything else you guys want to end with on this topic?
Well, this one will come out before the next two shows for me, which is going to be the Florida Grand Prix in Boca, which I'm excited about. It's a 2-day show because they have the NPC on Saturday and the natural show on Sunday. And then the following week, we'll all be in Pittsburgh for um, what is set to be a crazy pro battle
So I
for
cannot
both
wait.
Yeah.
bodybuilding and bikini and classic. I can't wait to
Yeah.
see parents.
I'm excited. And then the natural pro qualifying show on Sunday, I'm excited for too. Do you
So
guys have
curious. So
doing
curious
that?
about that.
Yeah, I have 2 girls doing it.
Okay, so I'll have a couple
So
as well.
curious.
Actually, I have one fit.
Possibly 3. Possibly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Fun. I'll vlog the whole weekend. So if anybody wants to,
we'll be documenting. I'm probably gonna have George come down to the Boca show at least to train at Brett's gym. I like to train and pose with everybody on Friday. Um, yeah. Kayla, the girl that was at Command the Stage,
Mhm.
she kind of stood out. She's down
oh
like
yeah,
6 pounds. Like she's coming to Pittsburgh to do some things.
okay,
Like, she
that's
looks.
right. She's doing
I've
Pittsburgh.
got some
Yeah.
girls competing this weekend, not this weekend, at the Florida Grand Prix show that I'm excited about. So yeah, it's going to be a fun couple of weeks. My first fit models are this weekend. I got 2 really good ones. They were both top 3 or 4 national bikini girls that are switching over to fit model now. So I want to see how that goes. It's going to start getting itchy, and then I got some pros hitting the stage in the next couple of weeks too. So it's going to be interesting. This this new division, and I guess just 2 pro bikini shows on the same day, which used to be split up. So this field used to kind of be all one. Now they're split up. So um, it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
Movie.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, if you've listened this far, comment below and tell us if we should do a team cruise. Then we'll know if you've listened.
Team Cruise thumbs up. Everybody will say they'll come. Nobody will come, but we'll still be there. We'll still
Oh,
be there. We'll have margaritas.
I love the cruise life. It is only way I want to travel from here on out for leisure.
We're getting Lexi drunk, Evan.
Let's do it.
Then you guys would like Utopia of the Seas then. It's a little bit more of the party atmosphere.
I'm not
compared to-
partying anymore. I want to sleep in, go to the gym, take a walk
It's
on the beach, sit in the sun,
Okay, it's not like I'm
And
not
have
saying
margaritas.
it's a party, but it's like there's more to
have a couple
do
more.
sense. So yeah.
Yeah. Maybe get day drunk and then take a nap. That sounds great.
Yes, that sounds pretty good. I'm down for that.
All right, guys. Well, I hope everybody has a good rest of their day.